Never fear, we're back again, and it's Friday. We made it. You made it. Everybody made it. Just so we can start it all over again on Monday, right? Glad everybody joining us here this morning. We'll let everybody kind of get going, and we'll have a little bit of Auburn football and second round of Alabama High School Athletic Association playoffs to talk about this morning. We'll take your comments, obviously, throughout while we're on live. We're glad that you choose to join us every day around the 8 o'clock hour to get your morning started. And Randy, 3 games left for Auburn football. We've talked it to death. And really not a lot to add other than what will we see? We will make a 3-6 season intriguing. We will how do you create drama with a 3-6 team? Still figure out who's going to play quarterback. Still figure out who's going to be your starting offensive line. You don't know from week to week with us.
Well, I don't know. I can tell you what I'd like to see, and maybe that's the best place for us to start this morning. I'd like to know going into the offseason if Walker White is an option. And yes, he may be an option moving forward, but I'm talking about an option for next year. We need to know that as an Auburn fan base, as now that NIL is a big part of going out and spending the money. I don't know if you noticed yesterday, but Cam Ward spent like $2 million on jewelry to give to all his offensive linemen at Miami. I'll let that sink into you on how much money it took to get him down to Miami, but it paid off. So my point is, let's take Walker White. You did a great job of breaking him down to start this week. He was a big-time recruit that we were very happy to get. He went out and sold that program to a lot of those receivers that we ended up getting. Can he get into the mix for the starting job next year? You got 3 games to find out. Even if he doesn't play the entirety of the games, let's let him play 3, 4, 5 possessions of the ball game. What do we have to lose, Brett? To put a guy out there and give him an opportunity. We know he's got the big arm. He's got the arm strength. He's got the build and the look to be a big-time college quarterback. And so that's my hopes. I know that there's intrigue going into the last few games of the season based off of some other players, but I don't hear any more talk about anyone more than I do what's the quarterback position going to be going into the offseason. We can answer a lot of those questions in 3 games.
We can. Now, will we see him? That's the big question. At the beginning of the week, at the end of last weekend, we heard Hugh Freeze talk about, trying to make a decision for the future moving forward. So heard some information out of the scrimmage. Walker White made some plays. It seemed like the other guys maybe got some snaps, but it led you to believe that Walker White may have gotten the majority of the first-string snaps. And then I think Tuesday, was it? Maybe Wednesday, Peyton Thorne came out and said he feels better and he's back at it and expects to play and expects to start. So, at this point, man, I've really, again, this is not anything personal against Peyton Thorne, but he's not coming back to Auburn next year. And the Peyton Thorne experiment didn't work. I hate it. We all want it to work, but it didn't work. And whether that's on him, partly on him, not on him, all on the coaches, partly on the coaches, I don't know. But it didn't work. So why are we going to spend 3 games with the guys not coming back? That's where I am with it now. You got a top-rated quarterback that's been sitting over there now, waiting and biding his time. Why not play him? I don't know what you have, like you said just a second ago, what you have to lose at this point, playing a younger guy. I mean, yeah, technically you could win out and go to a bowl game, but is anybody watching this, listening to this, even confident that we might win 2 of these games, much less all 3 of them? So nothing to this point's led us to believe that. So let's see what he can do. And you're playing Monroe, okay? You're 24-point favorites. Play the guy, man, some. I mean, even if he doesn't play the whole time, give him significant snaps. Let's see what he looks like.
I think we will too. And back to the La Monroe, this is just one of those perfect setups for a demise at Auburn. I'm hopeful that we don't see that, Brett, but I'm really worried about it because this is a good enough team to scare you. I know they're very, very well coached. It's a group of coaches from the state of Alabama that's had a lot of success, Brett. And
Right.
Vincent was a great high school coach. You and I had the good fortune of calling his very first state championship win down at Spanish Fort in 2010. I love the offense. I love the physicality that he coached. Cameron Blankenship was an offensive lineman at the high school at Benjamin Russell that you and I broadcast for, and he moved on, played at UAB, then went to South Alabama, had a great college career, and he's part of that staff. So my point is that I know a lot of those guys, and I know the
Right.
work ethic, and I think that there are expected work ethics for anyone that's coaching in the college game, but it does tend to make you a little bit more skeptical on what we're going to be able to do out there based off of how well I feel like that group over at La Monroe is coached. Auburn has got to improve. We've got to show progress. We've got to show some of these key recruits that we've still potentially got on tab to close out this 25 class with, that there is progression forward. And if Walker White's the answer at quarterback, give them a glimpse of what that may look like, because I do think that the wide receivers that we've currently got on the roster that are playing sparingly, a lot of them are, they may be playing a lot of snaps, but they're not touching the football often. I mean, Cam Coleman may get looked at 1 or 2 times a game, so I don't know if he may be taking 90% of the snaps, but if he's only getting 1 or 2 targets, what does it matter if he's taking those other 90% of the snaps? So I think everyone involved needs to see some movement forward, and I think a different quarterback in there would probably help the overall dynamic of the team.
Okay. A couple other notes. Moving over to the offensive line, is there a chance we see DeAndre Carter tomorrow? I think we can. I mean, he big time offensive line recruit last year. He's not in danger now of losing a year of eligibility if you play him over the next couple of games. So I'm looking forward to seeing if DeAndre Carter can make his way onto the field. If it plays out, Andy and I talked about it on Auburn Blitz earlier this week, that there could literally be 3 starters returning on this offensive line. It looked like you were going to be completely depleted, but it looks like, I mean, obviously Connor Lew will be back, and then you got Dylan Wade and Jeremiah Wright that still have a year of eligibility left. So you could have 3 of your starting 5 offensive linemen back. Now, again, what does that mean? I mean,
a lot.
It
It
does
means a
mean a lot.
lot. And let me throw another one in the mix that I've been applauding all year. Joyner, the Auburn High School.
Just here recently, though. Yeah, just here recently.
But he's got snaps, and he's gotten key snaps, and he's found his way on the field, Brett. And again, you and I saw a lot of him, whether it be at media days, and we're around him a lot. And I'll be the first to say that the first few times I saw him, and you and I tend to do this, we like to go out on the field and walk around and just see which Bows and Joes jump out at us. And he was not one that really wowed me. I'll put it that way. He's probably 6 foot 6'1". He is a solid 320, 330. He looked that way in high school, but I think he's just a grinder. And I cheer for those type of players, Brett. That's the type of Auburn player that I grew up loving. And my favorite players were Lionel James and Brent Fullwood and Quentin Riggins and Kurt Crane, and shall I keep going? Those Randy Campbell. You know, I don't know that I just named anybody outside of Brent Fullwood that was highly expected to be the top player at Auburn. No, they were grinders. They were workers, man, and they had great pieces around them, but they were tough, hard-nosed Auburn folks. And I think Joyner's one of those. I think he loves football. I think he loves the Auburn community. And so, Brett, add him to the mix, and you just brought up 4 really solid linemen to come back and count on next year.
I mean, again, I know it hadn't been the year that we wanted, but anytime you can return a nucleus of what you have up front in the SEC with experience, that you're ahead of the game. And again, I know I get tired of it, and you get tired of talking about being ahead of the game on certain things and then not ever panning out. But offensive line really is a position where if you can return a lot of guys, man, you are in good shape going into next year if the other pieces can come together. So, look, I'm looking forward to seeing if DeAndre Carter, if Braden Joyner really solidifies himself at a guard position, and then you bring DeAndre Carter in at tackle, and you give these other three guys and you get them back. That's a pretty good starting five up front for Auburn next year. And, now you shift focus to this recruiting class. And, I don't think you're going to see anybody decommit or flip. You might. I think we've got some football left to play to show them over the next 3 weeks where this program's going. So that could obviously impact it. But right now, I mean, Lane Kiffin was at Deuce Knights High School yesterday recruiting him, and rightfully so. I mean, that's an in-state top player in the country. He'd be dumb not to go over there and engage the temperature of where he is. But we just had another commitment yesterday, a flip from USC to Auburn from Carrollton, Georgia, and immediately Deuce Knight retweeted that and said WDE. So I think Deuce Knight mulled over the Auburn commitment for about 4 months. I really think he put a lot of time and effort because he was committed firmly to Notre Dame and had a lot of ties and connections with that coaching staff. And it took a massive effort to get him to come to Auburn. But he came to Auburn because of the guys that are coming to Auburn, the Alvin Hendersons and that, and then the comfortability of playing closer to home, I think played into it. But can Ole Miss jump in here? Yeah, they can. I don't know that they can pull him away at this point, but they did just get a flip from Cunningham from Alabama. So there's going to be like this. Again, I said this a few days ago to you, Randy. It didn't have to be this hard. It didn't have to be this hard for Auburn to go into this signing day in a few weeks and feel real good and not have to worry about this. But they've played so poorly on the field, it's created some doubt in some of these guys' minds. So now they're going to have to sweat it out for some of them. I do think they end up signing most all of them, which will put them in a top 10, close to a top 5 class in the country. But you're going to have to sweat a little bit now because you played so poorly.
Well, let's talk about the next 3 games. You need to win this weekend. I mean, if you don't win this weekend,
if you don't win
the
this
naysayers, you get – my point is, if you don't win this weekend, or if you win a very close game this weekend and then you get your doors blown off by A&M and Alabama, you're a magician if you hold on to everybody.
A&M shouldn't come in here and blow our doors off.
No,
Now,
I don't think
right.
they should either. But I'm being realistic on where Auburn sits right now. I'm watching what we're doing. If we can't get better offensive play, we're in trouble. And I don't know if that means leaning on the running back position to do what they did at Kentucky. If that's the case, I would like to win football games and take some positive momentum into the offseason. I don't think there's a chance in hell that we go over to Tuscaloosa and win. So forget that one. Can we go over there and play them well? Possibly. Maybe. We have before when we didn't stand.
We haven't lately.
No, so I don't count on that at all. I think Alabama's moving in the right direction as they head to the playoffs. That's what I think. Watching them, they're looking really good, and they got a quarterback that makes up the difference.
Right.
That's the difference between Alabama. It's not the only difference between Alabama and Auburn, but it's the biggest difference between our two programs. Is that guy, when there's a broken play, he can go make one,
Right.
and he can make a massive one out of a broken play. We need one of those guys. I know we're trying to get one of those guys, but if Walker White is a potential to be that guy, show it to us for the next 3 weeks. Let us all see it. Let those receivers like Malcolm and Cam and Perry and all of Bryce, all of those guys that you want to return, let them see if that guy right there can go out on the field and perform. And if you can't, you got an answer, though. Okay, we got to go to the portal, and we've got to go get the very best guy, and we got to spend whatever money we've got to spend to get the right guy there. But don't waste these 3 games mulling over, the quarterback position. Give Hank Brown and give Walker White an opportunity to go out there and show us what they have. And I think that Hugh Freeze is setting us up for that. Just reading into his comments. If you saw his comments yesterday, it was that Peyton Thorne's not quite to the level we had hoped he would be right now. I think he's just setting it up where that can be the excuse on why the other two guys get a majority of the snaps on Saturday.
Right.
And you'll pull Peyton Thorne back in there if you're playing terrible, just terrible. You've still got the option to pull him off the bench, say in the second half, but at least give this first half to those other two guys. I'd ask for.
Yeah, it starts tomorrow. Really need to come out. This team just needs a bright spot. It needs to win a game at home. It's been so daggum long since Auburn won a game. Isn't that crazy? Can you believe I just said that? It's been so long since Auburn. Now, we've been used to saying it's been a while since we won one on the road, but it's been so long since we won one at home. I can't even believe I'm saying that. That tells you where we've gotten. And this is a year you're going to look back and go, it was almost impossible to be that bad with the schedule we had. And, we talked about the schedule coming up next year, and I gave y'all my 9-month day in the life of Auburn fans in about a minute and a half snapshot, and I've gotten a lot of feedback from that, so I appreciate it. But the reason I got a lot of feedback from everybody on that is because everybody feels that they feel that way. They can associate with what I'm saying, and but you do need to carry some type of momentum into the offseason and going into the spring. And you do have a schedule that sets up mighty well again next year. You got a Georgia and an Alabama team coming to Auburn. You got to return the trip to Texas A&M. You got to return to Arkansas. But the road games are not by any stretch some daunting task. And then you open up with 4 very winnable games. Should be 4-0 if you can get your crap together and go out to Baylor. Now, Baylor's not some world beater. They're a good team. They're a good program, but they're not some playoff contending team. So if you can go out there with a better roster and play good football, you should open up the season, and that would be huge. And then you kind of lead in with a 4-0 start, but I'm not going to get all into all that. But anyway, what I'm saying is the schedule's setting up really like it's set up this year, and we crapped the bed. So that's a waste of time. So but it starts tomorrow. Auburn needs to look the part. They need to get a win in front of the fans that show up every Saturday, and that would help. And then you got A&M coming in next week, which will be a big environment. Okay, so A&M's still playing for something. This is a big game for them, and they haven't played well in Jordan-Hare Stadium, and they got their doors blown off by South Carolina last week. So they're trying to kind of reel it in, but and then you go on the road to Alabama, like you said, and at that point we'll just see how these next 2 weeks go and see what it looks like. But that's kind of a summation of Auburn. Auburn will get kicked off in the morning tomorrow, kind of where you expect when you're playing the way Auburn is. The old Jefferson Pilot Lincoln Financial game of the week that got you started at 11 o'clock. So, all right, let's shift over to the AHSAA playoffs before we get off this morning. Second round of the playoffs. And, again, you start getting down to cases with a lot of these teams and a lot of these matchups. 7A, there's only 2 rounds left. Okay, mm-hmm. So that's what you got to look at. You only start off with 3 rounds, and then you're in the Super 7. So you got to win 3 games in 7A. And before I go into that, G said, who was the last QB you felt comfortable with and said we have a chance?
Well, the last one that I thought was started the season, first off, I knew Bo Nix was a great talent. I knew from day one we weren't maximizing his talent. That's how bad of a job we were developing him and the coaching around him. So I knew it was Bo Nix, but he didn't get to where he needed to get to until he left Auburn. That's the disappointing part. But the last one that I thought going into 2018 that we had a great quarterback was Jarrett Stidham.
Right.
And 2018 was terrible, just as bad as you could ever ask for, coming off of what we did in 2017. So
that Tennessee loss.
Ooh. So most everyone's answer is going to be Nick Marshall, G. That's the answer most people are going to go back to and say, that's the last time that we started a season where I just knew that we had a great guy back there at quarterback, and he was, man. The further we get away from Nick Marshall, the more that I respect what he did on the football field while he was at Auburn.
10 years ago.
Yeah.
You're getting on up there. Keep your comments and all coming in. Jerron, good to hear from you again this morning. More down back to you. Same to you, Justin. Appreciate everybody with your comments. All right. 7A, four football games. Baker at Enterprise will be a hard-nosed, grinded-out football game. Opelika at Hoover, all eyes on that. We'll talk about that one here in just a second. Thompson at Auburn, man, rematch of couple state title games. Auburn has not fared well in those matchups, but they're definitely the favorite tonight against that Thompson team. And there's your Vestavia Hills Rebels having to travel over to Phoenix City, doing what they always do this time of year and catch their second wind. And after a rough start, they're playing really good football. So let's go back to the Opelika Hoover game, Randy. A lot of controversy around that game this week. Is Coach Moore will not be able to coach. He is suspended for that game. He was on the sideline with a media pass. I mean, can't do that. I mean, there's no other way to spin it. And, I like Coach Moore. I think he's a great coach. He has turned Opelika's program completely around. Just made a bad mistake, and he's not going to be able to coach his team tonight as they go to Hoover.
Well, it's disappointing if you're an Opelika fan, but you've got to be proud with the product that they're putting out on the field right now. They lost to Auburn, had a 7-point lead. Auburn, with that great quarterback that they have, and Jackson Kilgore, able to come down and score a couple of times and win that football game by 7. But that tells you how close they were with them. And then the lone football game they lost late in the season is probably the most talented team in 7A in Carver. And they had a really good lead, but both running backs got banged up a little bit, so they missed a majority of the time in the second half, and Carver couldn't be stopped there in the second half. So that's where Opelika sits, Brett. I think they're in the mix to play in a state championship game, but it is very disappointing. I don't know the specifics. Coach Moore wasn't in some kind of jumpsuit over there with his head covered with a beanie on or something. So, he had to have thought he had the right pass or was not doing right. I'm not getting into whether it's right or wrong. Right. I know that he shouldn't have done it, and I'm sure that he would say the same thing right now knowing that because if you do something wrong with this new AHSAA group, the hammer's coming down. And there's not a lot of gray area, and a lot of people appreciate that. And I can appreciate that with Harmon and that crew over there now. And I think a lot of them, and they're just trying to clean up some woes that have gone on around this state. And it's I'm not saying one's right, one's wrong. I am saying that I'm glad I'm not the executive director of that association. That's one of the toughest jobs in the state of Alabama. But I still feel like Opelika's got the better of the two football teams. Can they go over there and physically take it to Hoover? We'll see tonight. Hoover's really good offensively too, Brett. So that should be the best one in 7A that I see. Vestavia could shock people. Vestavia's coached as well as anybody, and Phoenix City's beatable this year. I'll put it that way. They've come back to the fray. They've been in some really tight football games, including one with Carver that I watched most of, and they struggled stopping them. So that could be a good football game. There's no part of me that thinks Thompson's coming to Auburn to win tonight. I'd be shocked.
Just have no offense.
I don't think that Auburn program. They're going to have to fall flat on their face to lose a game. That's how dominant they look right now. They got an unbelievable offensive line with what could be the very best high school running back. He just built perfectly for the college game. Got an Auburn offer already, and I hope we close the deal with him. I'd like to keep an Auburn high kid at home, and Omar Madsen. But their quarterback's not a big Division I prospect, Brett, but he's as good a high school quarterback as I've seen. I told you that in the spring. Our Benjamin Russell Wildcats went over there in the spring, and I don't think he had an incompletion and threw for like 4 touchdowns against us. And he has played the part this year for them too. So Trent Seaborn will have to play out of his mind over here if they beat Auburn tonight.
Yeah, I don't see it. But But that's the fun of it. You don't win it on paper. You got to win it on the field. All right, 6A, Clay Chaltville will be at Muscle Shoals. Clay Chaltville's the defending 6A champ. Hartselle at Oxford, man, should be a good football game there.
Great game.
Oxford's 11-0. Homewood at Fort Payne, 2-9-2 teams there. McAdory at Saraland, probably won't end well for McAdory there. Parker goes to Mountain Brook. Parker's 10-1. Their lone loss to Callaway, Georgia, Carrollton, Georgia, rather. Pike Road, 8-3 at St. Paul's, 9-2. It's a good St. Paul's team. Russell County and Spring Park. Do what now?
I think that'll be a good game. Hey, tip your hat to Granger Shook. He's done a great job of Pike Road. They started the season nowhere near the level that I thought they were last year. What have they reeled off? Maybe 7 consecutive wins, Brett. They won the region championship.
Yep.
Didn't they lose 2 or 3 out of the first 4 games?
I think they lost a couple of the first 3, and then now they're 8. Now they're 8-3. So.
Yeah, they've really settled things.
They were
down
struggling.
there.
They were struggling offensively.
They were,
and now they seem to have kind of found their legs. And we saw that freshman quarterback last year. So we knew that we would probably be a team to be dealt with again. When you have a guy that plays that well and goes to the 4th round as a freshman, you would expect him to come back and do that. But yeah, they're sitting here going into the round 2 with a great opportunity, but it'd be tough at St. Paul's. Russell County at Spain Park. Spain Park to me right now looks like the best team in 6A, top to bottom, just the way they're built, the way they play the game. We'll see how it plays out. Russell County, hell of a year for them, 9-2. Nothing else you can really say.
Great quarterback. Great dynamic quarterback. Can run it, can throw it. Same things we're saying with Auburn. Play breaks down, it could be 80 yards. Play breaks down, he can move around back there for 10 or 12 seconds, find somebody opened up down the field. That's what Russell County has. But I'm with you. I've seen Spain Park with my own 2 eyes. That's the best 6A offensive line I've ever put my eyes on, top to bottom. Those are all grown men at Spain Park on that offensive line. I love all the other pieces. Bradley at quarterback, the receiver that's getting a lot of looks all over. He's great too. But Brett, it's the offensive line there at Spain Park that's the most impressive to me.
No doubt. Just a phenomenal group all the way around, and then defensively they did do enough to get it done. All right, Spanish Ford at Hueytown. I won't say anything about that. I got personal bias there. All right, so but that'll be a good game going up to Hueytown. All right, 5A, Andalusia at UMS Wright. UMS Wright just does what UMS Wright does. They went to Demopolis and ruined their season like they ruined Central Clays last year. They're 5-6, but don't sleep on a Terry Curtis coached team. Boaz at a 10-1 corner. I said this last week. That corner team is one of the teams that doesn't get talked about a lot in 5A because you're talking about Montgomery Catholic, you're talking about Central Clay, you're talking about Moody, and then there's corner sitting there at 10-1, and they'll be hosting Boaz. It's 9-2, so you better watch out for them.
Only loss coming to Briarwood. Briarwood got their running back at that week. He missed the first 4 football games of the season, comes back, rushes for over 200 yards, gets corner, and then Briarwood finished the season with 5 or 6 consecutive wins, but they had lost too many early on to make it into the playoffs. So that's how big one player can be in high school sports.
Right.
You and I have witnessed it, of course, at Benjamin Russell. You lose one guy. If that guy's your offense, if he's the one making the plays, it can be painful. And that's where Briarwood was this year. So not a bad loss for corner there. And what a program, dude. They had a great season last year, won the state championship in baseball last year. I never remember talking about corner 5-7 years ago. I knew where it was because one of my best friends lives there, but never knew anything about their athletic program. And now it's every sport. Basketball, they're really good. Baseball. So tip your hat to that program. Something's being done right at corner.
No doubt. Montgomery Catholic at Citronelle. That's a good football game. Citronelle's a good football team at 9-2.
They better be. They better be a great football team, or they'll look up and it'll be 48-6.
It will be.
What in the world happened?
Hey, just bear with me. I'm trying to build up a little little
Okay.
suspense in that one, but you
Don't.
killed it. You killed it. All right, Leeds at Fairview. Leeds is 9-2. Fairview's 10-0. Good Fairview team there. Moody at Winona. Moody's only 2 losses are to Gainesville, Georgia, and Oxford. All right, so they played a big-time team in Georgia led by Josh Niblett, and they lost to that undefeated Oxford team. Coach Gaines has a great football team that's built to win it. So we'll see how it goes. Ramsey at Scottsboro. Viger is 10-1. Anytime you look down and you see a Viger team with double-digit wins, man, you better strap it up. That's all I can tell you.
Every year, I mean, when they put it together and they got 2 or 3 guys that make the difference, that's when you know they've got a great program. I think the very first group of state championships we called had Viger and 5A just running roughshod with Alston Fowler and that group through 5A back then. Man, they scored so many points on Russellville.
He was there for about 22 years.
He kicked. He took the water out there. He made all the tackles on defense. Now, I'm not saying he kicked well, but he did all of the kicking. And
no, it was not well.
I think they scored over 50 points that night, and I'm not sure they hit an extra point yet. But that was an amazing football team at Viger from a skill set. So I can't get out of my mind that that's what they can put out there whenever they put it all together.
All right, last one, definitely not least, though. Williamson 10-1 going to Central Clay tonight. That's an Antonio Coleman-led Williamson team. Central Clay, we don't have to talk much about them. They've got Danny Horns, the winningest coach in the state of Alabama history. They are definitely one of the top 2 teams, in my opinion, in 5A, Montgomery Catholic being the other one. But they've got a tough road, and Coach Horn and I talked about that a couple of weeks ago. They've got a 10-1 Williamson in the second round. Looks like the third round could be, I believe, it will be Catholic if Catholic wins, and then the fourth round would be Viger. That's before you get to a state title game. I mean, that's like the run Auburn had in the Final Four. When you had to play Kansas, Kentucky, and North Carolina just to get to the Final Four. I mean, that's very similar. I mean, that is a rough road right there, man.
Well, here's what I know about Williamson. They got 2 of the best offensive linemen in the state. So their lines of scrimmage on the defensive and offensive line are going to be outstanding. Central Clay's got some of the best skill position players that I've ever seen in Clay County, Lineville, Central Clay. Their quarterback's as good as I've seen, not just necessarily throwing the football, but doing it all, Brett. He's special over there. So they're going to have to create plays. Central Clay wins a lot of football games by owning the lines of scrimmage. I doubt they own the line of scrimmage tonight against Williamson. So it'll be those skill guys making the plays to win it, but they've got them. They've got them to do it for sure.
All right, let's dive into 4A. We'll try to move on a little bit quicker. Alexandria will be at Brooks. Ashford will go to Tallahassee. We got to say something about Tallahassee, man. 8-2 on the year. L.A. O'Neill came over and inherited a program that won 1 game. They beat Sylacauga. Sylacauga won no games last year. So between those 2 teams, it was 1 win. In 1 year, he has them in the second round, hosting a 6-5 Ashford team that I think that they're going to beat tonight. So you're going to look up, and Tallahassee's going to be in the 3rd round of the playoffs in 1 year under L.A. O'Neill.
That didn't hurt. They dropped from 5A to 4A, and now they are the big dog in 4A enrollment-wise. We've watched it in Elliott City way too often. When you go from one classification down and you're now the top enrollment school in that next classification, it can make a massive difference. And I think that is making a difference for Tallahassee. But L.A. O'Neill can get it done. He got it done at Booker T. He's getting it done at Tallahassee. He knows the kids in the area. Everything lies on leadership, Brett. Every single thing that you deal with lies with expectations and leadership. And the great ones, it doesn't matter where they are, they're going to be successful. And I think LA's building up a nice resume that I'm sure Tallahassee's thrilled to have him.
No doubt. All right, Bibb County at Jackson. Ugh, feel sorry for Bibb County. That Jackson team is just
Most
stupid.
talented team if you're just taking classifications out of it and realizing that 7A's got much higher enrollment and a lot more players to choose from. From a talent standpoint, Jackson's got the best team in the state of Alabama.
No doubt about it. Good Hope at Anniston, St. Michael at Pleasant Grove. That's a battle of a 10-1 and a 9-1. St. Michael scores about 60 points a game.
Yeah.
I'm just
Daryl, Coach LeBeau can coach them up as good as anyone at Pleasant Grove, though, and so
yep.
That will be a tough road test for both of those teams. I'm not saying I'm mentioning St. Michael's there, but for both teams, it's a great test. But Pleasant Grove has been knocking on this door for a decade now, Brett. They're going to knock it down at some point.
Yeah, they're poised right now to make a really, really good run. Fairfield at W.S. Neal, West Morgan at Madison Academy. 3A, Bayside at Alabama Christian, Morris Hill at Geraldine, Gordo at 5. How about that? 5 hosting at 8-2, a very good Gordo team at 10-1. Houston Academy at Thomasville, Lauderdale County at Piedmont, Southside Selma at Montgomery Academy, Sylvania at Winfield, and there's T.R. Miller at 11-0 hosting or traveling to Trinity. And that T.R. Miller team, they haven't had a close one, man, in 3A.
Well, you brought up a team that I would spotlight there in that classification. That's Gordo. A wonderful football community, always has been. And they've got a quarterback that's one of the best athletes in the state. Now, he doesn't get talked about as much because he's a 5'10", 175-pound, straight-up athlete. Jace Neal is his name. I've given him Players of the Week on top of Players of the Week. And it's not just his ability to throw the football, Brett. He works on special teams. I think he had an 85-yard kickoff return for a touchdown last week. He scored in 3 different ways, counting special teams, running, and passing last week. He's one of the best overall athletes in the state, as he was the MVP of the North-South All-Star baseball game, too. So keep an eye on Jace Neal. That is a Gordo team that if you told me they end up in the state title game in Birmingham, I wouldn't be surprised at all.
No, I wouldn't be either. All right, let's finish up 2A football. Clark County at Ayrton, Faultville at Pisgah, Goshen at Cottonwood. Cottonwood's 11-0. I've heard a lot of stuff about them.
Great defense.
Yep. Shutdown defense. Providence Christian will be at Highland Home. Highland Home, they're at 11-0. Reeltown at Laverne. Reeltown were the runner-up in 2A last year to 5. 5's not there anymore. Look, I like Reeltown to maybe win it all this year. Southeastern at Sulligent, Tuscaloosa Academy at Susan Moore, and then Vincent at an undefeated Winston County at 11-0.
Winston County's got 3 of the best running backs all back there together. All 3, 10th week of the season, had 140-plus yards rushing. They rushed for 450 yards as a team that night. Tells you the athletes you're going to see from Winston County. But I agree with you. Jamarcus Smith at quarterback for Reeltown changes the dynamic of their offense potentially. Tay Martin's back at receiver, and he's right at 1,000 yards and receptions already. They've always been hard-nosed there, Brett. They teach it that way. Their culture's built that way. Jackie O'Neal built that thing, and it's always been there. And it's just continuing on now. But Reeltown, I agree with you, and it's not a bad road game for them. Laverne's 6-5 on the season, normally one of the top 2A teams in the state. But if you've got to choose a year to go to Laverne, you want it to be a year where they've already lost 5 football games. So I expect Reeltown to go down there and handle business. Highland Home, probably the most talented. I know Reeltown people may not like that, but Highland Home may be the most talented team in that classification.
And Reeltown's had their number the last 2 years.
They have. Yeah.
All right. 1A Appalachian at Lynn, Berry Fayette. I've never talked about Berry Fayette, but they're 10-1. Yeah. They're at Spring Garden 11-0. Elba, Alvin Henderson will go to Linden. Leroy at Georgiana, McKenzie at Milry, Meek at Wadley. Wadley is 9-0. Look, my money's on Wadley. I'm not betting on high school sports, by the way, but I'm just saying my money would be on Wadley. Sweetwater and Maplesville. What a classic matchup that one is. Sweetwater at Maplesville tonight. Both teams 9-2. And then finally Winterboro at Hackleburg. There's Hackleburg at 10-1. They just seem to put out a good program every year as well. So there's some good football teams in 1A.
Find you a game tonight. I'll say that. Second round, getting into the third round, you start getting matchups that really could be championship game matchups.
Right.
That's how good these matchups are. Best two teams in 1A for me. I may end up wrong, but I'm never going to question Leroy. That football community down there is second to none in the state of Alabama. Defending state champions. If they lose, somebody's going to have to play a well of a game to beat them, and Wadley is the team that can do that. Wadley's got a lot of good athletes. I was talking to my crew down here at Lee Apparel, and they were talking not just about the two running backs, Brett. They've got a defensive end over there that's either a 9th or a 10th grader that they said dwarfs Wilkes. That's how big he is. So 1A football, you get 3 or 4 of those guys, and I've watched a lot of film on Wadley. They play the game the right way, too. This is not just throw it back there to Wilkes and watch that superstar run it. No, everyone on their team is playing the game the right way. It doesn't mean they all look like D1 athletes. No, of course you're in 1A football. But can the me and you tackle and play physical and play the game the right way? That's the difference in these lower classifications. And I'm telling you, Wadley is coached well, and they're playing game as good as you can.
All right, let's finish with some of the comments over here. Tony said, I know this is football, but I watched Stanhope's new basketball team led by Coach Austin Munkus last night. Mustang scored over 90 points. Very impressed with starting freshman guard Terrence Collins scoring over 20. Expect to hear his name a lot in the future. Tip of the hat to Austin Munkus. You and I know him very well. He played his high school ball at Benjamin Russell, so we've grown up knowing him, and he's been at Chilton County and did a phenomenal job over there. Now he's moved on to Stanhope, and they're going to win, just like Ricky Pulliam last night at Benjamin Russell has turned their girls program immediately into a contender as they beat Opelika last night. So Chilton County lost 2 great coaches. That's the theme I'm going with here. The boys coach, Austin, went to Stanhope, and Ricky Pulliam came over to Benjamin Russell, and they're both great.
Well, Austin can market a program. I've noticed that this year. Some out there, and look, I'm one that is begging for information. I make around 300 posts a month I'll throw out there for the AHSAA outlets. Players of the week, athletes of the week, trying to, put some superlatives out there, Brett. But if I have no information on your team, how in the world can I make a post to promote the strong work that you're doing?
Right.
Think about Austin. He's going to get you info. You go to their social media outlets, you're going to know everything you want to know about Stanhope. And that goes a very, very long way in building a culture that's winning, because people want to find their way to a program that it means something to. And I'm going to brag on Ricky. I got a phone call, Brett. I went to the 75th Auburn Chamber Gala last night. When we're on the ride to the gala, my sister-in-law calls my wife to brag on Benjamin Russell's girls basketball program. I want that to sink in now. Leanne was an athlete too, so she appreciates good athletics. I'm not saying that, but the last time she called me to brag on a high school basketball game, I can't think of any time she's ever done that. But that's how impressed she was with what Ricky's doing with that girls program. They lost by 4 to the 7A state runner-up last year in Hewitt-Trussville earlier this week, but they had 3 starters that were out of that basketball game due to an unfortunate incident that happened the other night I won't go into, but he's got things going in the right direction. I think it's just getting started. You wait, you give this thing another 2 or 3 weeks, and they're playing the way that I hear they're playing, you're going to have everybody in Alex City buzzing about that program, because I can't tell you the last time we buzzed about it. I'm not knocking who's been in charge. I'm not knocking anything like that. But what I'm telling you is I can't remember the last time we had a buzz around that girls' basketball program. Everything lies with leadership, Brett.
Yep.
Everything we just said lies with effort and leadership. And when you give it and you've got some good players around you, things tend to work out.
I couldn't have said it better. G said, I love the job Auburn's DC is doing. The future looks great with all the underclassmen contributing. War Eagle. DJ Durkin has done a great job on the defensive side of the football for Auburn this year. We've talked about it ad nauseum, but he has. They've pulled their weight and some They could have won all the games. They played well enough to win them all, and offense hasn't done so well. Brent said Maplesville and Sweetwater are 7-7 all time against each other. So this will rubber match here in the second round of the playoffs.
Two of the best high school football programs in state history. That's the beauty of having some of these games. And their records, they may not be undefeated this year, but when you live in communities like that, you get things going in the right direction. You can go ahead and run through some teams that look like they're a little better than you before the playoffs start.
Right. All right, it's been a good one. I'll be on with Wade Bennett today on Auburn Blitz on a Friday. We'll have Jason Caldwell back with us to talk, and I'll be on Gary Harris's show here at 10:30 to talk some Auburn football up in the Alabama, Tuscaloosa area. It's always a lot of fun as the Auburn guy on that show.
Brett, I want to jump in here and say something. It's semi-political, but just hang with me a second. This is what I said down in Davil to my business partner, Josh Brewer. If you own a small business right now, elections matter. Elections matter massively. Just since this election ended, it's like the faucets come on down here, man. I don't know what's going on in this country from a strength and confidence standpoint, but we've had some days this week in Davil that we haven't had months as good as we've had days worth of business coming in. So I'm hopeful. There does seem to be a lot of promising news that's coming out. Some of you out there that are tuning in may completely disagree with me, but I'm telling you as a business owner and someone that employs my fair share of people, things have changed, the positive momentum, and I am here to cheer it on, my friend. And if anybody has an issue with it, they're not going to get it from me. And look, I may as well say it now because business is that good. But if you need corporate apparel, screen printing, embroidery, promotional products, if you need to spend an advertising budget by the end of the year based off of some positive numbers that are coming out, call on Lee Apparel. And any sign project you need. We've got a new 90-foot lift truck coming in. We've got 3 brand new trucks on the roads doing installations for signage. So call on us here in Davil, 256-825-0197, Lee Apparel and Sign Source.
All right, guys, we appreciate it. And we'll catch you over the weekend and next week.